Hello, hello. I think it's working. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Is there anybody out there? Looks like we have a few people viewing. Cool, cool, cool. So this is going to be a Stripe tax deep dive. We're going to be kind of showing how to set up Stripe tax, configure it, and at the end of the day, I hope to show you all how to integrate it with your applications. So I guess without further ado, let's kind of just jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. Okay. So it looks like we're all able to see that now. All right. So once that shows that, so at its core, Stripe Tax is a system that Stripe just released. Just to give a little background, they released it to allow you to calculate and collect sales tax and VAT without having to do any real development on your end. In the past, what had to be done was either you had to if you wanted to do a Stripe only approach, you had to literally create tax rates for every single place you wanted to collect taxes in, and it was really not easy to do this stuff automatically. You had to build in a lot of code. Your alternatives were essentially you have to go to a third-party SaaS like Quaderno or Avalara or TaxJar and integrate with their API, and their API would be able to do this automatic tax calculations and collection. But with Stripe Tax, that's all better now. Really, it's so easy. So, and let's jump into it. The first thing you're going to want to do is go into your Stripe account. Now, not all of you are going to have this because it's still an invite-only product. If you do really want Stripe Tax enabled on your Stripe account, just send me a message. You can even put a message in, send me a DM on Twitter. That's the easiest way to do it. And I could probably hook you up, essentially. But anyway, you'll see here there's going to be a tax button on your dashboard. And when you set up, the first thing it's going to do is ask you for your origin address, right? So you would just literally put in where you do business in whatever country you do. You have to set up a default product tax code. This doesn't have to be set, but this will be the default of what any product you're selling in Stripe is going to have a tax code. And there's all kinds of different things, and most of them is all digital stuff because each type of product is going to be taxed differently depending on what location it is. Generally taxable, just automatically apply taxes to almost everything. And then the second thing you're going to want to do after you set that stuff up is start adding your registrations. Now, I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through the process. The important one is there's the United States tax and European tax are the most common ones. So if you want to do a European tax, you really would just pick the European country that you do most of your business in. And the easiest way to do this is to select VAT MAS, which will actually, if you select this one here, because you can either collect only in a location, or you can do VAT MAS, which lets you collect in all UAT or in all European countries, the VATs. So for this one, we're just going to immediately add a French VAT with OSS enabled, which will apply it to all European countries. And that's really all there is to it. And obviously you want to add all the different countries that you do a lot of business in. Stripe actually tells you what areas you're doing a lot of business in. So there's this potential registration section. And I can actually show you what that looks like. They have a little screenshot of how it is. This is a test account, so we don't really have all that. But when you actually have a live account with doing a lot of business, you'll see this kind of a window where it tells you how many taxes or how much business you're doing in each country and where you're potentially going to need to start collecting taxes because you've done a certain amount of revenue in that country or state. So this is like in California, we're getting close to the threshold. Netherlands, in this example, it's exceeded the threshold. So it's saying, oh, you should probably turn taxes on for this country. So that's kind of the basics of the setup for Stripe Tax. Once you actually set this up, it's just all about setting up your products and plans then. So we're just going to go through the process of setting up a product. So we're going to call this test tax example. Really, there's a tax code here. This is if you want to override your default tax code. So you can pick something else. This will override it. So let's say we're just going to sell SaaS. That's the most fun example in my head. We'll just make this a $50 a month, and you can see here there's actually a little preview of what the sales tax might be. If for California, where I live, there is no SaaS tax, but I think if I set this to general, it should, yeah, it gives you that 8.5% tax rate. So and then you can see some other examples like Texas and Maryland. They're all different tax rates. So you could get a kind of preview for that. And then this is the include tax and price. So this is inclusive and exclusive. So this is basically going to be saying your price is going to be, if you say yes to this, the taxes will be baked into your final price. So in this price preview, you see the sales tax of 8% adds $4 with a total of $54. If it's yes, your total should be at $50 always. So really your subtotal is $50. There's going to be a 3.92 tax, and that gets baked into the final price. So the end user doesn't see a price change. So, but for this example, we're going to say no because it's more fun to see numbers showing up, and we're going to save this product. Now, to actually start using Stripe Tax, there's a couple different things. So we're going to go through the process of how to use it just in your Stripe dashboard. And I'll show you how that, oh, well, we're on live mode right now. So let me go ahead and turn on test mode so we don't have to process real things. I'm just going to add a new customer here. We're going to call this German because they're in Germany. And so billing details, this is where it detects where your customer is. So make sure you set their country. I don't think we even need to add the other values there. We can just go ahead and add this customer. Let me see. You know what? I created that product in live mode. Let me go ahead and create that same product in test mode real fast. Sorry for about that. It'll only take 1 minute. Let's go ahead and open up our test mode here. Let's create a new product. We'll call it test tax example. And then once again, we'll just make it generally taxable. So taxes show up. $50, including taxes. No, okay. So now that that's products created, we're going to do just, there it is, test tax example. You can see off the bat, it detects that this customer is from Germany. It knows that Germany has a 19% VAT, and it's going to charge them that extra $9.50 on top of your subscription exclusively. And if we were to start this test subscription, which we can, we have to add them a card and stuff, but you get the idea. This is how you want to do it if you're in the dashboard, and you can obviously turn on or off to collect the taxes automatically, whether or not you want it. Now, if you actually have an application, you're not going to be processing subscriptions through the dashboard. You're going to be wanting to process your subscriptions via your app and through your app subscription process. So I'm going to go into how that is done using code. And it's not bad. So I know code turns a lot of people off, but it's really easy to get this set up. So I have open here a Replit, which is just a very mini Node.js environment. This can be done using any of the Stripe client libraries or in any language, even just using curl. And essentially, I'll go through line by line, right? So in this function, we are initializing our Stripe library, passing in our Stripe secret key. And then what we do is we create a brand new subscription. And in it, we have a customer that has already been created. This customer, if we pull it up here, it should be, I believe, a French customer. Last time I checked. So if I open this, so this is, I named him Jacques, of course. All right. So Jacques here, he lives in France. And what we should expect is when we create a subscription for Jacques, he is going to have a French VAT applied to his subscription, every iteration of that subscription. And the way you do that is in your subscription creation code. All you need to do is set this automatic tax enabled true. That's all it's going to be. And once you have that, it should start automatically creating tax rates on these subscriptions based on where your customer is located. And of course, you just pass in the price of something that has automatic tax enabled. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this. So we can see here we're opening up the latest invoice. And so this is a subscription that just got created. We're expanding open the latest invoice. We can see for this first subscription, it's $100 a month. So, or I think that's $100. Yeah. $100 a month. And there's a $20 tax on top. That's the French VAT of 20%. And total would be $1,200. And you can see here, this total tax amounts has a tax rate included in it. So if we want, we can actually, this tax rate is actually a tax rate that exists. You could query it and open it up, and it would say it's a French tax rate. We can actually do that on the fly if we want. So we can say tax rate equals, let's see if I remember this, stripe.taxrates.retrieve, and then we want the subscription.latest invoice.total tax amounts 0 tax rate. And this should theoretically give us the tax rate object that gets automatically created for these customers. Let's see if we can do this. I did it wrong. All right. What did I spell retrieve wrong? Is that it? Yeah. That was what I did wrong. I spelled retrieve wrong. So you can see here, this is the tax rate that got created for this new subscriptions late invoice. You can see it knows it's French, 20% tax type VAT. I literally didn't have to do any work for this. This automatically gets figured out. And it's really, really, really awesome. So I guess I'll stop for a second here and see if anybody has any questions about what I've shown so far. Please, if you have any sort of questions or anything you want to know about Stripe Tax, just let me know in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. So I'll move on to the next piece, which is going to be how to actually start calculating tax rates. So let me pull open the bill flow demo here. So something that a lot of, this is great, right? Automatically applying your tax rates to your customer subscriptions. But there's another piece to it, which is actually showing your customers the tax rates that they're going to need to, the taxes that they're going to pay before they actually pay it, right? Because customers are going to be like, hey, I saw this was a $100 subscription. Why am I getting charged $120? Right, and to do that, you need to. There's something. There's an API called the Upcoming Invoice API, and in the past, this was always used for existing customers and existing subscriptions to essentially tell you what the next invoice they're going to pay is. What Stripe has done with the launch of Stripe Tax is change that API to allow for new customers or non-existent customers upcoming invoices to be generated, and that includes tax rates. So what I have open here is a demo for BillFlow. BillFlow has already integrated with Stripe Tax. So if you use BillFlow, you can automatically use Stripe Tax without any development. So what I have here is a BillFlow checkout page that automatically knows I live in California. The sales tax is 8.75%. And you can see, and it displays to you the final due today total before we actually go through the checkout process. And when I go through the check, and it does this through IP detection, actually. So Stripe Tax Upcoming Invoice API supports detecting where a customer is based on where their IP is and display a tax rate for them based on that IP address. At the end of the day, though, the country you pick will determine where your tax is going to be. So, for example, if I put in a European country like Austria, it's going to detect the VAT 20% that's going to be due. And this is because this upcoming Invoice API supports both the IP address and the billing address as different methods of detecting where they're located and to give them a proper tax rate for that. So I'm going to show you how this is implemented now. So I'm going to open up another Replit. And this one's a little more complicated because it involves, when you actually implement, you have to collect your customers' addresses and IP addresses, and this has to be an endpoint that communicates very closely with your front end Stripe integration. But anyway, so let's get into it. So I have here a test payload to the upcoming Invoice API. The upcoming Invoice API, in order for us to work, you really just need to pass it the subscription you're trying to subscribe them to, and that's going to be an array of prices in the subscription items, as well as customer details. So this is going to actually explain, there's two options. You can either start with the IP, you're going to want to start with the IP address, so when they land on the page, you're going to be able to give them a tax rate up front. And you also want to be able to accept address, which will override the IP address, because at the end of the day, the address is going to be more important than the IP address when it comes to giving somebody a tax rate. Billing address is key. And then obviously the last thing is you want to do this, the same flag we did in creating the subscription, which is the automatic tax enable true. So, oh, hey, Kevin. We're just going through the, this is displaying the tax rates at, so just to reiterate for Kevin, when you land on your checkout page, we want to be able to display the VAT to people, a VAT or tax rate to people based on your IP or your address. But anyway, to jump back into it, so this code right here, right? This is the upcoming Invoice API. So my actual implementation is I retrieve an upcoming invoice with this payload, right? The key thing here is the customer or the subscription. They don't exist yet. This is something that just got added as part of Stripe Tax's ability to give people an estimate of what they're going to pay based on where they're located and what the subscription is without them existing. And I'm just going to go ahead and run this code just to show. So it says here in the logs, right, the customer will pay a total of $123. Taxes paid will be $23. This is in cents, so I automatically know how to divide by 100. So, and this, let me go ahead and expand this so we can actually see what's going on here. So I'm just gonna an upcoming in here, so we'll be able to see. Run this. So we have here the same exact total tax amount. So I'm just going to say upcoming total tax amount, so we can expand that open. This will actually show what we're going to be paying in taxes. So out of our $100 subscription, we're going to be pay $23 in taxes. It's going to be an Irish tax of 23%, and that's because we have an address here. If I commented out this address and then ran this code one more time, you're going to see it's going to change to a German VAT because I have a German IP address in this field. For your implementation, you're going to want to pull the IP address from the browser that's making the request to load that checkout form. And you're going to want to plug it in there, and then it will spit back out a tax rate and a total amount that they're going to have to pay based on that tax rate. So it's really cool stuff. We at BillFlow were really happy when they added this upcoming invoice without an existing customer API, because before we would have to figure out just calculating subscription totals. We would have to do that all on our own to get this kind of checkout functionality, like this total, subtotal. If you had complicated pricing, like per seat with multiple different units and things of that nature, it got really complicated in our front end code. So being able to have this upcoming Invoice API that, on top of telling you how much taxes you have to pay, it cleans up your front end code a lot to be more dynamic and just less buggy in general, because you can basically ask Stripe, hey, how much is this customer going to pay? They have all these things. They're applying this coupon. Just give me their total, and then it spits it out perfect. So I guess I'll take a pause here. Now is kind of close to the time when we should start getting some questions. I'd be happy to go over anything. I know, Kevin, you just kind of jumped in the middle. I'd be happy to go back and show things if you want. Just if anybody has any questions, just feel free to ask me. I'm here to help. And again, if any of you, right now, Stripe Tax is early access, so you have to actually request it. If you want access, let me know, and I can probably get you access. So if you want to start playing around with the API and start working on implementing it with your SaaS, go ahead and just let me know. But other than that, I'm just going to open the floor for questions or anything anybody has. Otherwise, I can go into the reporting and how that would work. So at the end, that's kind of the final thing. And then there's one more piece, which is migrating your existing subscriptions. So I guess if we don't have any questions, I will just jump into that. I have an eye on chat, so feel free to start. Just if you have anything in your head, just let me know. All right. So let's just get into it. So once you have this all set up, right? So you're already collecting your taxes automatically. You already start displaying it to the end user. At the end of the year, you might say, oh, it's tax time. It's time to send it to, send the taxes that we've collected to the proper authorities. And the way to do that is through reports. So through reports, you can create an itemized report or a summarized export of basically you can say year to date, give me my taxes. You can even schedule it to happen automatically. And this itemized export that you can get will be sent to your accountant, or if you're using a third-party SaaS, like TaxJar is one of the preferred partners that Stripe uses. You can send it to TaxJar. They will go ahead and automatically help you file your taxes. And I think if I open this up, it should give me an itemized version of my test mode taxes, which should be some very interesting data here. Right. So you can see this is just a couple of invoices that we've run for this example. These were my French examples, and you can see it tells you the amount that your totals that you're filing, your exchange rates. It goes through the currencies. So this is everything you're going to need to end up filing your taxes. Replit is just my aid. So Replit right now, my Replit here is just a very basic Node.js environment. The API calls I'm making could be expanded to any sort of backend. So right here, this is the Node.js Stripe library. And I'm making just Stripe API calls. So if I open up Stripe's API docs, these exact same API calls, oh my God, I just Googled API docs. Stripe API docs, these exact same things that I'm doing are available in here. So if I, for example, pull open the upcoming Invoice API, which I was using to display those, you can see here, we have here the customer details that I was showing, where you can pass in your tax IP address. You can set automatic tax to true. So all of these are just baked into the Stripe API. It has nothing to do with Replit. Replit is just what I'm using to show you guys what's going on. So that's that. Where was I? Oh yeah, filing. So at the end of the day, right, you're gonna need to file it. So for Stripe recommends your U.S. filing partner be TaxJar. For EU, use Taxually and Morosa. And that they can, or you can just pass them to your own accountant, or just do it on your own if you don't have an accountant. I haven't gone through the process, but I don't think it's too terrible. And then the last thing I wanted to actually talk about on this live stream was what happens if you have a lot of existing subscriptions. And to answer that, the process is actually pretty straightforward. I have here a basic migration script that I've written. Essentially, what you're going to have to do if you have existing subscriptions that you want to migrate over to start using Stripe Tax is you want to basically query your Stripe for all subscriptions that you want to activate. So for this example, I have a very liberal query, basically query everything. So this will literally get every single subscription, check to see if automatic tax is enabled. If it's not enabled, I will enable it. So that's just going to be performing a Stripe subscription update API call on that subscription, and then setting that automatic tax enabled flag, which we saw in the previous example, to true. Sorry. So, and then I think depending on how much business you're doing, how complicated your Stripe account setup is, you might need to start querying a little differently. So the Stripe subscription API, to actually list them, there's different ways you can filter it. So I've definitely would recommend you look at your use cases. Like, for example, maybe one product that you're selling needs taxes enabled, and all the other ones you don't want to deal with it. So you can just plug in a specific price ID, and then set them all enabled to that. Your use case may vary, is kind of what I'm saying. Don't just take this kind of script that I've written right here, because this will turn on automatic tax for every single one of your subscriptions if you ran this code. Just want to make that clear. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is find the subscriptions you want to turn automatic tax on for, and then do a subscription update API call, setting this automatic tax enabled flag to true. And everything I've talked about with subscriptions, it works the same way with invoices. So if you want to create invoices with taxes enabled, you really just have to set, when you cut your invoice, so when you call Stripe invoice create, or whenever you create your invoice, you want to just make sure you have that automatic tax flag enabled, set to true. The same thing works for subscription schedules if you're using those. So if you're doing a lot of one-time charges and you want to have automatic taxes, your Invoice API will support that functionality. And we're coming up on the 30-minute mark, which anytime after this, I've allocated for just answering questions. I don't have much else to show for you guys. Just feel free to. I'll give it maybe 5-10 more minutes, or however long, if you guys have questions. I am here for you guys, so just ask away if you have anything. Otherwise, we're gonna end it. So just feel free to let me know. I'll wait a few minutes, see if anyone has anything. But yeah, I think we were very excited about when Stripe Tax came out, because it was just something that came up over and over again when we were asking customers for bill flow, which you can see here. Bill flow, if you're not familiar with what we do, is we provide embeddable billing pages for Stripe. So we have the customer portal where you can give your customers access to self-service their subscriptions. We have the checkout pages and pricing pages as well. So this one looks a little funky. All right, but yeah, so it's Stripe Tax. To get back to the subject, is a very, very cool product from Stripe that at least I personally think is the coolest thing that they've done in recent memory. It's just so seamless on how nice it works. Okay, yeah, I got you, Kevin. So Kevin's asking if we can show how to split our digital products from physical products. And the way you do that, it's really straightforward. In your products, you can specify on each product in your Stripe account what its tax code is. So for this one, I have it set to generally taxable, which would be more your physical goods. And then depending on what type of digital good it is, you would pick, digital audio, digital video, website, and each one will be obviously taxed differently. So really, you can just do it on a product by product basis, and that's the way. I mean, I think that's really there's no way you can screw this up. If you have physical products, set them as generally taxable. Otherwise, figure out what kind of digital good it is, pick that, and you're good to go. So that should answer your question. Cool. Anything else you guys want to see? No. Well, just go through one more thing, which is, I guess, just to reiterate, like you don't have to use, if you don't want to do any development, you have a couple different choices, right? You can there's three options. You can either integrate it with your SaaS using the code that I've kind of come up with right here. Like, this is a very basic example. Obviously, for whatever SaaS, you might have to do customer creation, more dynamic price picking. But really, your two options are you either code it yourself or use a tool like BillFlow, or you can use Stripe Checkout. Stripe Checkout does support all of the Stripe tax, functionality. All right. So no problem, Kevin, and see you, Eli. Thanks for coming. All right. Well, I think this is going to be about it for. Unless any of you guys have any more questions, I think we can wrap this up. There will be a recording of this on our YouTube channel, and feel free to just let me know on Twitter, DM bsears_ if you have any questions, or if you want Stripe tax turned on. I can help with that. Just let me know, and have a great rest of your day, guys. It was a lot of fun.